Welcome to the 9th module in this educational series, where we will cover operational excellence as a driver of repeat donation. Donor retention has long been a challenge for most blood services, resulting in seasonal or perennial blood shortages, compromised blood safety, and an unsustainable resource bias towards recruitment. Operational excellence can help meet this challenge. It is the workplace philosophy aimed at meeting or exceeding customer expectations in order to secure high levels of customer satisfaction and loyalty. There are 6 learning objectives in this module. Completion should enable you to explain the importance of donor retention to blood donor management, define operational excellence and its role in meeting organizational objectives, apply the AIDA framework to donor management, identify which areas of the donation experience are critical to donor retention, understand which strategies can positively influence that experience, and finally, appreciate the customer loyalty principles that are transferable to the donor retention challenge. Donor retention can be defined as the ability to keep a recruited donor active. As we have seen in previous modules, there is strong evidence that a retained donor is safer, less demanding of resources, and responds more reliably when asked to donate. All this helps with operational planning. Donor retention can be considered the equivalent of customer loyalty in business circles and is therefore underpinned by the principles of service quality or operational excellence. This module will focus predominantly on the importance of good customer service to donor retention. It will address, among other key areas, issues relating to the donor's recruitment, pre-donation, donation, and post-donation experiences, in as far as they influence the donor's loyalty to the blood service. That is to say, his or her decision to continue donating. If the donor retention challenge can be resolved, it has the potential to be transformational in meeting the increasing demand for blood. This should, therefore, be a major focus for all donor management practitioners. There is evidence from the business world that just a 5% improvement in customer retention rates can yield between a 25% to 100% increase in profits. Translated into blood donor management, this infers a single retained and regular donor can be worth up to 4 newly recruited ones. In reality, this value is probably greater because of the current high rate of attrition among first-time donors and the fact that the lifetime contribution of a loyal donor can exceed 100 units. There is also a multiplier effect where a loyal, satisfied donor can act as an advocate for the cause of blood donation, helping recruit and retain others. The blood donor can be considered by every blood establishment as a special type of customer. Unlike in a typical business model, the blood donor is not driven by their own wants, but by benevolence. So, in reality, a donor has little to lose if they do not engage in what we might call repeat business. Even where the blood service is a monopoly, the donor has many alternative choices, with competition ranging from a tight work schedule to warm blankets on a cold day. Therefore, a blood service that takes a casual, business-as-usual approach to donor retention will likely keep losing its newly recruited donors to these competitors. Although operational excellence is a wide topic with its own models and frameworks, this module will deal specifically only with those customer loyalty principles that are transferable to donor management. The acronym AIDA, as seen in Module 2, represents a series of stages through which a potential customer progresses before they get to the actual point of purchase, or in our case, donation. These stages are attention, interest, desire, and action. The stages from a linear hierarchy. The pyramid representation, or funnel, implies that the numbers engaged at each point will become progressively fewer as we move towards the action stage. That is, you cannot expect all whose attention you engage to ultimately decide to do business with you. Although a simple model, in this module, we will use AIDA to provide us with a framework to help highlight areas of operational excellence essential for blood donor retention. Issues to do with blood, especially human blood, are held sacred in many cultures and religions across the globe. Consequently, voluntary blood donation for the benefit of strangers, displacing an established culture of family replacement blood donation, is often viewed with some suspicion. In donor management, the concept of voluntary non-remunerated blood donation, or rather, The opportunity to save a life is the product that the donor recruiter promotes. He or she should first draw attention to the existence of the blood service and opportunity, develop interest through donor education, and promote desire through donor motivation. The model suggests that this should then lead to the action. The desired action in this case is more than just one-off donation. It is regular, repeat blood donation, which is the natural consequence of donor retention. The following slides explain these steps and how each can be best handled to facilitate retention. In life, most opportunities for long-lasting relationships are missed because of a failure to make the right impression first time. The old adage, "There is no second chance to make a first impression," sums this up. It is important to understand that a donor's decision to return is greatly influenced by their satisfaction with the recruitment experience. At each stage, they will be judging whether you are the sort of person or organization they can do business with. Most donors who decide not to donate again, despite being given the opportunity to do so, will give some form of unsatisfactory interface with the collection organization as their reason. The first demand for operational excellence, therefore, falls to the donor recruiter. This is the frontline employee who introduces the voluntary blood donation concept to the potential donor. Awareness can be considered at various levels. At a high level, the public needs to be aware that blood donation exists as a need arising from the transfusion requirements of hospital patients. It should follow that they understand one or more organizations exist to collect blood from the public to support community health care. Once the presence of a blood service and its purpose are established, a member of the public needs to know how to interface with it. Often, this is done well at a national level, but less well locally. It is entirely possible to have people passing within meters of an open public blood drive and not know it is happening. So, banners, posters, signage, and vehicle livery should be effectively designed and strategically positioned, attracting both new and returning donors. Access to the donor, whom we ultimately intend to retain, cannot be consistently achieved without assistance from various authorities such as school, business, family, and church leaders. However much an individual may want to donate, without permission to both the recruiter and the donor from the relevant authorities, donation may be difficult. Permission is needed, amongst other things, to use the premises to address the potential donors, and especially to have the donors leave their scheduled programs to come and donate. This setup calls for the blood service to treat such key stakeholders with the same customer care we bestow upon donors. It is unfortunate that many blood services have adopted a mentality where they expect to receive much more than they are prepared to give. Blood services potentially have much to offer. For example, staff can arrange lectures on such topics as diabetes, cancer, sexual health, and stress alleviation to workers, students, church members, or other communities. Staff can be present and identify with these stakeholders' moments of sorrow and joy. They can invite contacts to key functions, such as award ceremonies. In this way, access to donors and facilities in their custody becomes just one modest request from a valued partner. Permission from these authorities to return for subsequent blood collection events is vital to create repeat donation opportunities. Creating interest is the phase where donor education plays an important part. The potential donor has to be sufficiently educated to find the area of voluntary blood donation appealing. Any education materials should address commonly held myths and misconceptions and answer such questions as: why human blood? Why voluntary? What are the risks for me? How is it processed, stored, distributed, and transfused? It should be noted that interest may be difficult to generate or sustain. If someone's perception of the collection organization is negative, blood services should feature in the public consciousness for positive, not negative reasons. For example, many services use shortages as a reason to go public with blood supply crisis type stories. This may generate donor response in the short term, but over time, people will become complacent when they see such stories, and it will also erode faith in the competence of the service. After all, how well run can the organization be if it is always short of blood? A public relations department will help calibrate your organization's image at all times. In donor recruitment, one key approach to stimulating a desire to donate is delivery of a motivational talk. These are public, group, or one-on-one discussions packaged and presented in such a way that, after a successful pitch, the prospect actually looks forward to becoming a blood donor. Recipient stories can play an important role, as can testimonies from donors stating how easy and rewarding it is to give blood. You need not restrict this approach to non-donors. Even regular donors can benefit from a top-up of motivation every now and again to keep them engaged. The refreshment table can be a good point of delivery. Imagine two young men, both late for their first dates. One calls and says he is 30 minutes away, but arrives an hour later. The other calls, says he is running late and could be there in an hour and a half, but also arrives an hour later, but 30 minutes earlier than promised. Though they are both 1 hour late, one will arrive to a frustrated date and the other to a pleasantly surprised date. The first overpromised and underdelivered, while the second underpromised and overdelivered. It is therefore not advised to try to generate interest by raising expectations you are not sure will be met, especially regarding what donors will get from the blood service in return for donation. Downplay incentives, tokens, and refreshments. Explain that the spirit of donation is compromised the moment one expects something in return. The desire to donate, be it a first or repeat donation, can be easily destroyed by inconvenience. The saying, "What is worth seeing might not necessarily be worth going to see," is relevant here. Decisions on selecting a blood drive venue should be made on the basis of the donor's convenience rather than that of the blood service. The most convenient venue for the donor will be one with low to zero transport cost and minimal travel time. Community halls, church premises, schools, and similar public facilities in residential areas are generally ideal. Closely linked to the above is the issue of accessibility. This is mainly a concern when the donation has to be made at the blood services premises because you cannot offer local alternatives. Make sure you have dedicated parking for donors. These spaces should be placed closest to the building, not pushed out to some distant corner by bays reserved for management and staff, which will send out very poor signals about your priorities. Open for as many days and hours as possible, remembering that evenings and weekends may be the only options for some donors. Where a journey is via public transport, one practice known to greatly aid donor retention is the reimbursement of travel costs. This is particularly relevant for young donors, many of whom in developing countries will be unemployed. At face value, the idea of transport reimbursement may sound unaffordable until you consider the high cost of recruiting a new donor. A retained regular donor may only need $3 or $4 a year to boost the blood bank by the same number of units. This makes borrowing from the recruitment budget to spend on retention something well worth considering. Assessing a fixed donation site or major blood drive on the outskirts of town may be a big turnoff for blood donors. This even more so when the weather is not favorable. Blood establishments should consider shuttle services where, at given intervals, a small van takes to town those who have donated and wish to leave, where it picks up and brings to the blood drive those who are yet to donate. This not only makes donation convenient for the donor, but also makes them feel truly appreciated. Donors are offering us their time, and we should treat this offer with respect. Donors considering moving to the action stage of the AIDA model may notice long, slow-moving, and poorly managed queues and rethink their desire to donate. Alternatively, in a worst-case scenario, a reputation for chaotic donation processes may already be in the public domain. Avoid designing in pinch points when blood drives are combined with promotional events like marches, speeches, and other crowd-pulling activities. Open for longer hours so as not to overwhelm staff and frustrate donors. The first part of the video clip illustrates a very busy but organized blood drive. Long queues cannot be avoided with events such as Pledge 25 Club blood drives, where turnout of several hundred may be expected in a single day. What is crucial is to manage them, be orderly, and minimize donor frustration. In the second part of the clip, there may be no fewer people, but low-cost entertainment is incorporated into the format of the blood collection event to create an environment for sober fun and socialization. This provides a positive distraction from any waiting times and will help promote repeat donation. Quite often, days and times scheduled for blood drives clash with potential donors' existing commitments as workers and students. Many can find free time after hours or during weekends, but ironically, this, in many cases, is the same time blood service staff identify as time off. One way to get around this is to help staff become aware of how this inconvenience disadvantages potential donors and makes giving blood less likely. This can be achieved by allowing them interaction with actual and potential donors to get first-hand feedback, always much more effective than simply being told something by a manager. Management can consider offering incentives to staff to adjust their hours in order to improve donor convenience. Remember that the blood service has many competitors for a donor's time. Make the experience of chatting to a friendly staff a clear winner over staying home to watch a movie. Donors are unlikely to return if the collection team project a negative attitude. Staff should therefore promptly welcome all prospective donors in a warm and friendly manner. Demonstrate gratitude for the effort a donor has made to attend and provide reassurance, especially for a first donation. Staff should avoid talking on their cell phones or chatting to other staff whilst ignoring donors. Imagine someone discussing their weekend plans or complaining about something to colleagues while working on your arm like a tailor does on a piece of fabric. Staff should find a common topic around which they can start building a relationship. This could be health, family, work, or vacations, but avoid controversial topics such as politics or religion. In moving to actually give blood, the prospective donor progresses from desire to action, a transition that may take minutes or years. The first donation experience is crucial and can make or break donor retention. Get it wrong, and the donor may donate just 1 unit in their lifetime. Get it right, and they may give over 100. The moment of truth can be defined generically as an instance wherein the customer and the organization come into contact with one another in a manner that gives the customer an opportunity to either form or change an impression about the firm. In donor management, such an interaction can lead to the donor forming or changing an opinion through the appearance of the premises, the attitude of staff, the donation experience, neatness of the physical environment, social stimulation and interaction with others, and efficiency and orderliness. Where the experience is less positive than anticipated, the wider the gap between expectation and the reality, the less likely it is that the person will return. One of the key pillars of operational excellence within blood services is adoption of a good quality management system based on internationally recognized standards such as AFSBT's stepwise accreditation or the ISO 9000 standard. All departments in a blood service should have defined processes, documentation, which includes standard operating procedures or SOPs, should be developed and used for carrying out tasks. Staff should be trained and certified competent in all procedures before attending to blood donors. Some of the key SOPs in pursuit of operational excellence and repeat donations are booking of new panels, handling of customer complaints, registration and selection of donors, performance of venipuncture, post-donation care, management of donor adverse reactions, and post-donation counseling. These policies and procedures are too often written with a focus on the needs of the service, Rather, you should be using each to ensure that donors' impressions about the service, especially the first impressions, exceed or at least meet expectations. Professionalism should be a core value for any blood service and can be signaled to donors in a number of ways. Alongside competent, well-dressed, and well-equipped staff, you should be mindful of the general presentation of the blood service premises. If we accept that customers generally prefer giving their business to companies with well-painted, nice-smelling, and appealingly presented environments, why should a voluntary donor who loses nothing for not choosing you be any different? Achieving the required standards of furnishings and maintenance may require money to be spent, but this should be seen as an investment in retention. Donors who feel comfortable in their surroundings are likely to form more positive judgments around the other aspects of the service, such as clinical competence, and be more likely to return. Most donors feel less motivated to return after failing to donate due to temporary deferral. This all the more so if the deferrals are consecutive. If not handled well, this will often be the last time that you will see the donor. Always defer using simple language which the donor can understand and ensure they are aware of when they can return and any actions they can take to minimize the chance of a subsequent deferral. Be at pains to make sure the donor does not feel that they have failed in any way, and be sure they are thanked profusely for making the effort to give. It is natural for people to be apprehensive about needles, and for many donors, this will be the area that will make or break the donation experience. First-time donors need to be assured that the worst they can expect is mild discomfort. This can be honored by making sure that only the most proficient staff are allocated phlebotomy duties. Experience has shown that, even amongst trained staff, donor satisfaction with needle insertion will vary significantly. So, where possible, you should establish which members of the team are the most capable, and they should lead on this activity. Soon after completing the donation, offer the donor a seat in the refreshment area where they should rest for around 15 minutes to make sure they are well and able to continue with their day. Extra care should be taken with younger donors who are often more prone to vasovagal events, especially if they see others fainting. As well as a final check and instructions, donors should be thanked once again for their contribution to saving a life. The final part of the experience is often what donors will most clearly recall, so make sure it is positive. Adverse reactions should be handled in a manner that instills confidence in the blood donor and those around them. The most common adverse reactions are hematomas or bruising and vasovagal syncope of varying degrees. In cases of fainting, be aware of the symptoms that may precede a donor passing out. These are sweating, restlessness, sighing or yawning, pallor, clamminess, and disorientation. If a donor faints, do not panic. Remain calm, but act quickly and efficiently. Fainting is a common donor deterrent phenomenon which needs to be handled carefully, ideally away from other donors. As previously discussed, incentives and recognition items can supplement verbal appreciation in making donors feel valued. However, there are operational challenges to be considered. Collection teams will often not have the space to carry and store items, especially if multiple sizes need to be available, as is the case with clothing. Care also has to be taken not to alienate donors not being recognized. Most will understand if others, but not they themselves, are given benchmark awards for, say, a 50th donation, but regulars may resent being ignored by a promotion aimed at attracting, for example, first-time donors. There is no right answer, just a need to factor in operational logistics as you develop your recognition strategies. Donor records are a critical component of donor retention. Information architecture will likely vary with the level of resources available. At one extreme, card-based approaches can do a job, but tend to rely on donors being loyal to their allocated panel. If a donor appears unexpectedly, a service can find they have no information to hand on that individual. It is extremely difficult to interrogate paper-based systems to get insights into trends and extract management information that will help drive better decision-making. At the other extreme, blood services can license commercial donor management software or even develop bespoke computer systems. Whilst this can be expensive and more technically demanding, such systems will give senior management a national perspective, plus the ability to manage relationships by segment or even on an individual basis. They will also provide an early warning system of impending problems. It should, however, be noted that inaccurate or outdated records can result in inefficiency and have a negative impact on corporate reputation. For example, the authors remember a case where a donor passed on and the parents duly notified the blood establishment, but because records were not updated, the parents kept receiving letters addressed to the deceased, inviting him to come, have fun, and donate with others. The parents were justifiably upset, particularly where records are computer-based. Do not make the common mistake of devolving responsibility for donor records to the IT department. People are often key to the quality of input information. Furthermore, if they are not willing or able to use the output information, then the blood service will receive no value from this, whatever the theoretical potential. Not all unsatisfied donors make complaints. Most simply just don't return, and the blood service never understands why. Their stories may even discourage other donors. Sadly, this condemns the organization to keep repeating its mistakes, deterring even more donors. Many organizations are defensive and see complaining donors as difficult, but in fact, the reverse is true. A donor who makes a suggestion or raises a complaint should be applauded. They are giving you the opportunity to investigate, correct, explain, and apologize. Deliberate efforts to get customers' views should be in place using such tools as surveys, suggestion boxes, feedback sessions, and interviews. Analyzed appropriately and then acted upon, results should lead to evidence-based, donor-centric policies. You should strive to be a learning organization with a culture of continuous improvement. If we strive for operational excellence, who should judge if we are successful in achieving this objective? The answer is that it should be donors. If we believe we are doing a good job, but our donors do not, then quite simply, we are wrong. Donors can be routinely surveyed to benchmark where the standard of service sits, and then, over time, establish if it is getting better or worse. Ideally, the survey approach will drill down to uncover what specifically is driving satisfaction or dissatisfaction. Key to this will be understanding what is important to donors and putting extra effort into ensuring excellence in these areas. Supporting each other at individual and departmental level is crucial to donor retention. Complementing rather than competing with each other should be the goal. Colleagues should treat each other with courtesy, respond responsibly to requests, show interest, and accept a sense of shared responsibility. Practice internal customer care by keeping a constant check on colleagues' needs, particularly those whose output depends on your inputs. Also take responsibility for informing others rather than wait to be asked. Be cooperative, working with colleagues and not against them. Accept responsibility beyond your sphere. Meet donor complaints with an explanation or apology on behalf of the organization, not by trying to shift blame. Remember, blowing out the other person's candle will not make yours shine any brighter. Instead, it will make the room darker. One key driver of donor retention is a commitment by management to consolidate its in-school recruitment efforts with an equally aggressive post-school retention program. Young donors, if retained, have the potential to dramatically increase the blood supply. A proven way to retain and nurture young blood donors is to manage them within a club context, where they combine socializing with blood donation. This concept is explained in more detail in Module 7 and in even greater depth in the book Unlocking the Potential for Blood Adequacy in Africa, freely accessible online. In summary, donor retention borrows heavily from customer loyalty principles and has its roots in the quality of service an organization offers to its blood donors. This service, in turn, is determined by staff attitude and management commitment, the investment decisions made, the operational practices employed, and the quality of execution. Management and staff should treat the donor as a customer, one who has numerous other choices and whose loyalty cannot for a moment be taken for granted. It should be remembered that every donation experience, indeed every interaction, could be the last if each does not produce a positive satisfaction rating and add to the pool of goodwill the donor feels towards the blood service and blood donation in general. Please use these prompts to help you reflect on what you have learned in this module. In Module 10, we will cover General Administration of the Donor Recruitment Unit.